We are live. Hey, yeah, a little late on the overlay. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, technology. My name is Steve Jaguar.
And I'm Mike Foster, and welcome to C9K. We have a packed show for you. It's been a couple weeks coming back from Summit, traveling, but we're going to be talking some Google Chrome fixes. I'll be looking at the CVE Prioritizer, really cool CLI, thanks to Mario Rojas, and some hot takes for you today. So welcome back to the show with a fresh new paint job.
Here we go. C9K in the streets. Clusterfuck in the sheets.
Sheets. Yeah, you got it.
All right. I like the new layout. It really brings focus to the fact that I got hit in the face by a Frisbee yesterday.
I wasn't going to say anything, but
no.
I think it makes you look better.
Thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
I agree.
Yes, there is. I can't reference that, but if you want to check all our show references, subscribe. You can check it down below. I will put a video there of Steve getting hit in the face with a Frisbee if you're interested later. So make sure to check that out. And as always, subscribe so you get notifications because summer's coming up. We're going to be traveling. We try to do this every 2 weeks, but we're not perfect.
We're only human. Yes, you've been traveling. You went to, I don't know if this is part of general news, but you went to Red Hat Summit. How was that?
Yeah, I figured we'd give a quick update. So Red Hat had their yearly summit, the first one post-COVID that was well attended. Last year, they had it in Texas and kind of moved it last minute. And it was mostly, let's say, Red Hat people and not as many of the average layman coming in. Practitioners, thank you. This one was big. I think we had over 8,000, 9,000 people. A lot of people coming for labs too. The way they handled labs was really good. Similar to when we went to Reinforce last year in Boston, because it was in the same area, where we had the same session, but we had it 2 or 3 times so people could check in. I ran one session that had basically 300 plus people. And this bleeds into my hot take later. So just being hands-on with people in Kubernetes and all this really opens your eyes to, I think, some of the blind spots that you have in your day-to-day work. But overall, well attended, typical Matt Hicks, everything's AI. Like you said, 17 times in the keynotes, along with all the other CEOs of the world. It was really interesting to see how much effort something like that takes to put together, internally and externally, because you do have some contractors for event space and things like that. One thing I did like, the events were better than Reinforce, like the post events for Boston. Wow, yeah, I really liked that. I found that Reinforce was very American centric, whereas Red Hat had a lot of partners that flew in. So you got some Europeans, you got some people from APAC, and it was more interesting to get feedback from them, right? Because a lot of everything is like very North American focused. A lot of the initiatives are based off of American companies and what they need. And then hearing from, the German consultants be like, yeah, you need to support this for 10 years before I'm going to push this into an account, right? Things like that are...
Germany always causes trouble.
Yeah, of course. Right. I'm sure the Brits are used to that too. But overall, really good. I think it was just awesome to be back in person at an event like that and honestly see colleagues. I think that was probably one of the big highlights too. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Anything you're wondering about Summit?
Well, not really. I mean, actually, was curious to see because my company and your company are kind of partnered. Were we there? Because I didn't.
Yeah, you were.
See, I never.
Yeah, and I think that we're gonna have more partnerships moving forward. I think it just makes sense. So we can talk more about that offline. But
all right, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, and then I think one of the big announcements in security was a trusted software supply chain that we released. So trusted content that we build, that's signed, that's given to you, and then we give you the tools to make sure it's signed all the way through. It's not an offering yet. It's kind of a spinoff of the validated patterns that I always talk about, along with just Red Hat signing everything and giving everything an SBOM. Really, that's just our way of saying, hey, we're verifying everything for you, and then giving you the tools to then, as you add software layers, verify that as well, and then enforce it or check it with something like ACS in the cluster, which that was a pretty cool demo. And if you ever want to see it, there is a part in the keynote. It's Burr Sutter's session. It's like 5 minutes of security focus in the keynote on the second day.
Cool. So how long until these talks are online? That's
that's a good question. They should be within the next week. It's been 2 weeks. I think they said three-ish weeks. Although I believe they are. The keynotes are online. I think some of the side sessions might take a while.
Okay. All right. Cool.
But I'll search that and we'll figure it out. But yeah.
Nice. And speaking of Reinforce, I'm there next week in Anaheim. So I'll be doing Forward CloudSec and Reinforce. So when we do a show afterwards, I can give you the lowdown on those two.
Very cool. And then World Hacker Games, can we make an announcement on that one too?
Yeah, we don't really know what it is, but we're doing something.
Okay. Yeah,
we're actually missing one of the training sessions right now to do this.
Yes. Yeah, June 30th. I think there's a whole hackathon that we're going to be commentating. Yeah.
MC/commentating. Yeah, essentially.
Got to work my broadcaster voice.
Yeah, well, it's not too bad. You're working on it, but he wants us to have fun with it. So I think we're going to be able to let loose a little bit more than we do even on this show.
Nice. Yeah. So I don't have to worry every time I say clusterfuck.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. Yeah. So you think you can squeeze in as many profanities as you want from what I understand.
Should be good. I want. All right.
But yeah, it's gonna be cool. We have to I think we have to study all the hacks. So we have to know the solutions in advance, something like this, so that we can see how close people are getting. This is my impression, but there you go. June 30th. We'll try and get a link up for the next show so we can get more people signing up to watch.
Yeah, and the next show will be in 2 weeks. So we'll have more information then. Again, like and subscribe, and let's get into the news.
Okay. You want to control the production and bring this up?
Yeah.
So mess it all up. All right. Awesome. Yeah. So this isn't actually in the links down below because I was remiss and didn't add it, but it's a must mention. The yearly Verizon data breach investigations report came out. Probably one of the most quoted free downloadable reports like every year. I mean, I've got a presentation that I'm doing next week, and twice I'm quoting this from 2022 because this one wasn't out yet. And it's got just amazing, it just goes through every breach that happened in the past year, and it gives you all the stats and summaries all about it. So it's great. I heard somebody refer to it as great having a poop reading. Just sit there.
And that person was myself.
Yeah, you let some big ones go. So do go check it out, download it, and give it a read, because we don't learn unless we see the investigations about how breaches happened, and get some stats and see where it is we need to be heading from a security perspective. Always amazing. All right, that is the undocumented first subject. The actual documented first subject is this one. New supply chain security features in Tecton. Now, you pretty much there's 3 things like this. You just mentioned Red Hat.
Yep.
Doing signing, and now Tecton has integrated SigStar.
Yes. Well, Red Hat obviously is very involved in the Tecton project along with Google and others. So this is partially a group effort, right? The supply chain security space is filling up quick because it is piecemeal. And so it's just trying to figure out how to build that governance into everything, make sure everything's signed. For those who don't know, Tecton and Tecton Chains specifically there, Tecton Chains uses a Kubernetes resource controller to go and take a snapshot of what's running in your cluster, different manifests, signs it, and then verifies it, so that if anybody goes in and changes a manifest, you can either inform or enforce on it and say, hey, your deployment just changed. Is this part of the provenance? You could do that. Typically, what you want to do is you want to do that deploy time. So you're signing it at deploy time. It's running in the cluster, and it's only going through your build process, right? So if a developer goes in and changes that, you would get evicted, or you'd use somewhat sort of enforcement. So having that amount of permission obviously means that you want Tecton Chains to have, SLSA level 3, maybe SLSA level 4 eventually. So it's that first step in that process.
That's cool. So I got a question for you, and this could be a hot take on the spot. How well adopted do you think Tecton is? Because I think Tecton seems pretty awesome. I had a conversation like internally with the research team that looks at, I don't know what you call it, the reliability of certain pipeline methods.
Yep.
And they just don't think Tecton is getting enough gravitas, or it's not used. It's just not used. It's one of the, to me, it seems like one of the best things. And it's just, where is it?
Yeah, because it's too open. It's not opinion. My personal opinion is it's not opinionated enough. It's more of a framework in order to implement CI/CD practices through open source, rather than just saying like, here's, GitHub Actions or here's GitLab pipelines, which are very opinionated. Here's the framework. Here's what you do. Just implement, drop. Here's a bunch of examples. Go, right? Tecton has that. It just, if you have to manage the actual application itself, which a lot of people don't want to do. A lot of developers don't want to do. So now it's onto your operations team to manage the pipeline. And I think from a human perspective, managing a pipeline tool is one of the thankless jobs you're ever going to have, because if the pipeline doesn't build fast enough, developers are going to complain. If the pipeline has issues or flags that the developers don't want, they're going to complain that you're slowing down their process. So typically, I think it's that management portion. If, for example, GitHub overnight, you see that? GitHub. I just mixed those two. If GitHub overnight decided like, hey, we're integrating Tecton into our pipelines, and so you can have GitHub Actions and GitHub, Tecton or something like that, I think you'd see a lot more adoption. It's just from the usability and management of the software, in my personal opinion.
No, that's a good take. Perfect. Good answer. All right. No, I like it.
I was going to say I didn't make the answer for you, but yeah. Yeah, thanks. So you had this
next
one.
Up. Yeah. Return of the monolith. I'm pretty opinionated about this one, but I thought the new Stack article was pretty funny. Amazon dumps microservices from video monitoring and goes back to a monolith. And the new Stack, you go through and you get, here we go. This is great. This is why this article's in here. For a generation of engineers and architects raised on the superiority of microservices, the assertion is shocking. And there's this quote: an absolute embarrassment for Amazon as a company, complete ability to build internal alignment and coordinated communications. Like, this is great. Poster child for service-oriented architectures from Basecamp founder. Lots of people freaking out, right? But if you do look at it, what they did, and if you go look at the original post, down if you went and looked at the original post by Amazon, you look at, they really do break down this diagram. I'm trying to get it on the screen here. It is, from a video streaming perspective, this is the stupidest architecture of all time. Like, they went all serverless, step function, lambdas. They're caching, like streaming data, video data in an S3 bucket for persistence between like serverless. It's insane. Like, it's the most inefficient possible concept. Like, so this like the headline of microservice back to monolith is like, oh, how dare you? But then you look at what they did and you're like, okay, if anything I'm going to criticize, it's who came up with this in the first place.
Yeah. This
is someone's over enthusiastic serverless mindset that created this in the first place. And then they've, the fires of innovation cooled and they went, well, that was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a microservice issue. It's a people issue.
It's a people issue.
Build issue.
They just went, what are we doing? Why are we caching? Like, this is Amazon Prime. How much data do you think is going through this? I think they even say back in the original assessment how much data they were trying to pound through this S3 bucket. And they're like, why don't we just make it one big thing? And then the data is just always there. It's just at the rates and performance that they're trying to achieve, sad to say, monolith is a better idea. It's like
yeah. And we were talking about this article that came out of IBM, and it was a movement away from the cloud. And there was this C something suite person that came from IBM, is now at another company. And they're like, oh, we're moving on-prem. We're moving away from cloud service because we're getting charged too much. And I always wonder why this comes out / who commissions it. Is this Amazon's way of saying, hey, we understand, like maybe they make more money from virtualization in S3 buckets than these, because I think what they don't want is somebody to build something like this, get charged a ton, and then just leave the cloud altogether, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm just wondering who commissions this story / how it gets out, and what's the purpose of it.
Oh, that's a good.
What's
good
Amazon?
question, yeah.
What does Amazon stand to gain out of an article like this? Because very rarely do you see them this open about
No,
a change.
that's true. They regardless of what the industry's take on their choices, they look bad. They either made a bad design in the first place, or people are going to say they're making a bad decision now. There's no winning by this article, but I like that they did it.
Hate to be the AWS bill, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, I bet you that was a seriously bad bill. Okay, all right. Oh, you can tell the sun just came out next to me, believe it or not, through the forest fires of the Canadian wilderness. There's actually sun, sort of. I'm starting to look like I'm in a nuclear blast.
Yeah, I
anyway,
felt like
moving on.
I felt like I was on Tatooine for the last couple of days with that orange haze.
Yeah. All right. Star Wars reference. All right, moving swiftly on, because you've got a demo to do at the end, and let's not waste time. Container Security Fundamentals Part 4. I threw this in here, not because I'm like two reasons. Not because I'm specifically a massive, what do you call it, C groups fan, but more because I feel foolish that I caught this at Part 4. This is Rory McCoon, now with Datadog, doing this great fundamentals series, and he's at Part 4. So if you really want to, just for people looking to get into containers and container security, go read 1, 2, 3, and then join up at 4. And he's doing a nice little breakdown, step by step, blog by blog. It's a little bit of overlap with the Liz Rice book on container security, but it's just a nice, like, this doesn't take long. If you're thinking, you've been doing containers forever, you've been doing security forever, but maybe you didn't. If you got in late, you still need to go back and understand the fundamental building blocks of what's going on. And he does a good job of breaking it down. And it's not a particularly long read. So I think it's worthy to promote and get out there.
So you read 1 through 3?
No, I didn't.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
I started at 4 and went, oh God. And then I just Googled container fundamentals Datadog and found that the other ones are out there. So I'm gonna have to go back.
Very cool. Rory's at Datadog now.
Yeah, he moves around. I think it's also interesting because he's at Datadog, which I don't associate with container and Kubernetes security, but he's still churning out all of this really good content in the space. I don't know why they seem to just let him do whatever he wants.
Interesting. Yeah, I have noticed a lot of analysts asking for more security related features in just general applications. Like, you'll have a CI/CD analyst report and they're like, what security features do you have in the CI/CD process? So I'm wondering if a lot of the movement from these companies are like, they want to push into security / analysts are forcing them to.
Yeah, it could be.
Especially with the big companies, right? Anyways, moving on to our last one.
Yeah, this is now, and apologies in advance for how rough this looks. It's not my page.
Yeah.
OWASP announces the top 10 list for large language models version 0.1, maybe even 0.001. I don't know. I haven't seen who the author of this is. We have frequent conversations about OWASP top 10s being potential vehicles for marketing. I don't think this one is, but I didn't even know that we needed a top 10 for LLM. I guess we do. Prompt injections.
Yeah.
Like, I am learning, like, what can go wrong just by going data leak. Okay, data leakage. Yeah.
Yeah. Like what
we actually saw that already. Yeah. I don't know if it was code execution, CSRF function. Oh no, SRF vulnerabilities. Really? So this is kind of, for me, it was kind of fascinating to go, we already have training data poisoning. Look at that bottom of the list. So you just garbage in, garbage out to try and attack. And I don't know, like how.
Yeah, this is the over-reliance on LLM generated content is an interesting one for me, because you can imagine in 10 years, as people get better at prompting and using AI to generate their content, does it just converge into a singularity, or does it go into mayhem because it's like everything on the internet is very similar? People aren't editing or creating anything new anymore.
Yeah.
I hesitate to say, but I think that people think LLM is going to get rid of jobs. I think it's actually going to get rid of the whole SEO way that we've done the internet. And the things that are going to get leveraged and pushed up are stuff that are actually very well thought out content that are informative. That the LLM is going to say like, yes, this is what we want. This is the correct answer. And it's also written in a way that's useful versus just, when we go on LLM, we just say, hey, give me the Kubernetes 7 security tips. And they're very similar, slightly reworded, slightly different, but you're getting the same answer. And it's still slightly off too. Like you can probably think of 2 or 3 more if you're in the space. It's not exact. So I do think that convergence was an interesting one. I'd never thought of that as a harm. I just thought it was going to be something that's going to happen,
Yeah. Agree.
But
So
overall,
anyway, watch the space. Yeah.
Overall,
what?
I was just going to say, overall, the OWASP top 10, we have another one coming in. So it's just another OWASP top 10.
I know.
There's a bunch of them.
There might be a hot take in there somewhere, but that's for another week.
Yeah, for another week. For now, I'm going to make it spicy this week.
All right.
Yes. Spicy hot take. So coming back from Red Hat Summit, I did a lab with probably over 300 people in total that are coming out Thursday morning. Some of them, especially post-event, were a little hungover, you could tell. But overall, it went really well. Very thankful to just the way all these labs are executed is crazy. How much work goes into that like pre-event and post-event. So when you're going to these events and you're doing labs, especially like when we walked in and the laptops have everything already set up, right? Yeah. So you don't have that issue. It was awesome. All right. Anyways, hot take. People are not as smooth with Kubernetes as we think they are. I think that there in general is a 100, 200, 300, 400 level of personality. A lot of people don't care about Kubernetes. They don't care about how their applications are run. And they, let's say, want to just use Kubernetes to solve their problem instead of understanding Kubernetes and figuring out how their problem can become better in Kubernetes. It's just, hey, can Kubernetes do this? Can we do this in this application? Can we do this because, so-and-so up the ladder had asked them to do it? What that told me is that people look at it as a problem solver and not a platform. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when people look at a technology, they don't ask like, oh, what's the big vision? What's the high level? What's this? What's this? They just think like, how does this solve the problem I have today? Right. And that I think when we talk about Kubernetes, we assume that people grasp what it's trying to solve, but really that's a very small subset. In the lab, we'd have, maybe 100 people in each lab, probably 5 to 10 were Kubernetes SREs. They're like, I've seen all these commands. I know what's running. I understand what's being asked of me here. I just want to see, ACM or ACS and see the functionality, for example. But everybody else was very like, oh, this is LDAP? LDAP in Kubernetes is like, yeah, I mean, it's pretty old, LDAP. It's not relatively new. It's just a new way of doing it, / it's that in Kubernetes. And that's what we're trying to show you that map over. But some people didn't know what LDAP was. And
really?
Yeah. So it just means that when they're coming in to learn Kubernetes, they're coming in with their knowledge and trying to solve their problem, which it just showed me that people are not as in tune with the platform itself and the features. So I think that as much as you see the adoption, I think it's adoption with a very small cohort that are tasked with just running the underlying frameworks and just Kubernetes in general. And it's not the average person.
Okay. All right. So maybe playing devil's advocate, maybe this is like the number 10 in our LLM top 10 training data poisoning attack. So do you think this is maybe characteristic of Red Hat people or customers because they tend to come from larger enterprises that tend to be slower to move?
I definitely agree with that. And that's why I think that Kubernetes still has a long way to go in the enterprise, because it's getting adopted into, let's say, big banks and, Fortune 500 companies, but those efforts to modernize take 8 to 10 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
That makes sense.
And it's just that learning that gap just isn't there. But the problem is they're only going to learn what their company / use case wants them to learn, which
Right.
yeah, it's just a human challenge. People have better things to do.
Yeah, true. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit, we live in a bit of a starty-uppy vendor Kubernetes bubble. Just assume everyone's as au fait as we are.
Yeah, we sell the future to a certain extent. This is where you can be, right? But then the average person in their day-to-day, they don't care about where it can be. So it just really depends on who you're talking to.
They just want the damn thing to work.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of their issues have nothing to do with Kubernetes. It's, hey, I have this issue with this person. How do I lock them out of Kubernetes? Like,
Kubernetes?
we need to reframe that question completely. But that's, hey, yeah, that's what consulting's for, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyways,
nice.
That's a hot take.
Good hot take.
I think we have some breaking news.
So glad I turned down the volume on that. Boom.
Yes, I'm very glad as well.
All right. So this is the third one. Container image signing with AWS Signer and Amazon EKS. A third instance on a theme. Excited to launch AWS Signer container image signing. It uses Notary or Notation. Notary. Yeah. Notary project. Yeah. Which I think is a little old school, but sure. Like,
yeah.
I scrolled through here going, oh, have they gone SigStore? Are they going to fork and start doing AWS Store or something? But there you go. They have Kyverno, Ratify, Notary in combination, signing Amazon ECR images and verification. So they're getting on the signing train and building it into EKS. Seems good. I don't know. Got any alternative takes on that?
I'm just always curious at why vendors choose software like this. Is it to be different or to avoid licensing or to avoid the open source community?
Yeah, that almost is a hot take again,
right?
on what was the choice in this combination of technologies. I feel it's free. We can use all these together. No one's going to give us any grief, and we can offer it and increase the value of the service now.
Yeah,
it doesn't really cost us anything except for the engineering effort.
Yeah, I'd argue they were too late to the SigStore project, which means they don't have enough power to sway the project now. Yeah, which means they either have to fork and create, or they introduce themselves into the Notary upstream, and they have a lot more say in how it's developed, specific for AWS.
Yeah, ooh, political take, but probably correct.
Yeah, that's my theory. On to the crazier stuff.
Yeah. This is a seriously good WTF. Yeah. Millions of PC motherboards sold with a firmware backdoor. This is awesome. It even starts off talking about the normal MO of these kinds of things, some insidious toolkit, stealthy hackers, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, nope, they put it in there themselves. They actually put it was an innocuous tool to help the motherboard's firmware auto update. That was it. It's an innocent effort, right?
But firmware auto updating, like that needs to be controlled.
Well, even more, because it's like it says there's an updater program that's triggered, but runs it. It's not like it runs inside itself. It runs it on the computer that the motherboard is installed on. So it's a remote code execution machine, is what it is.
Yeah.
And the researchers, who are the researchers? I want to say Eclipsium. Is that the research company? Said basically it's not implemented securely at all. It's like, okay. So if you want, I guess, I don't know if they're saying anyone's using it, but it's like, maybe they are now because there's an article about it in Wired. Somebody out there could just hijack the whole thing and just start repurposing it for installing wherever they want on your computer, thanks to Gigabyte. Oops. Big one for the oops category.
Yeah. For sure.
That's bonkers.
Yeah, is there a fix for it? Do you know how we can identify if we have this firmware?
Good question, actually. Is there like a, let me see, update? Announced the release of updates to its firmware. There we go. Releases additional secure measures will better protect users of its affected motherboards attempts to attack it. And so they've well, what's probably also a bit alluding to our next one, meta about it, is that because they have auto update, they could probably use it to auto update to turn itself off.
Very true. Yeah, that is a perk. Yeah.
Okay, seeing as I just said meta.
Yeah, that's very meta of you. This one I
Thanks.
found is interesting because this came up on a couple of conversations at Summit as well. Just LLMs, AI. The new battlefield's going to be over data and retention and just trying to milk across lines. So you have a product. Let's say you're Canada and you want to sell milk into the US. Well, let's say US makes milk cheaper than everywhere. Okay, so then what do? Well, we purify our milk 7 times. And if you purify your milk 6 times in 6 processes, that's not up to our standard. So that means like we get to protect our people. Journalism prevention, like Preservation Act, literally it's to preserve journalism because journalism is not making enough money. Anybody can go and write and publish to Facebook, accurate or not. So it's bleeding the industry to a certain extent. And they want to make it so that if you republish something that you have to pay for it. So sort of a preservation rule. The issue is that I have with my journalism in general is journalism was so slow to adopt to the internet in the early 2000s that they just did not have a good way to market. They wanted to leverage Facebook and leverage all these tech companies to get their articles out there. Facebook's like, okay, fine. You can publish your articles here for free. We'll redirect it to your website. But then as soon as Facebook said, hey, we can just screen grab your article and put it on Facebook and you don't get the redirect clicks, then people got upset. And then they went to the freemium model where it's like you click through and it's $1 to subscribe, and they tried to make money that way and all this stuff. I personally think that this is just lobbying, and that eventually you're going to get into the Substack method. Like if you look at YouTube, if you look at Twitter, the millennial generation for news, it's about finding personalities that you like, that you actually trust, and paying them directly. I don't think, I think that especially for long form content, I think that the general news needs to pivot, and like these long form articles need to pivot to individual subscribers and quick hits, like your ESPN top 10, your, hey, here's what's in the news in your local area. That stuff you're never going to be able to recreate online. But the long form, here's 30 minutes about cybersecurity. Here's an hour about it. Here's your article that you read on the toilet. That stuff is going to be subscriber / a Substack or whatever like that. Anyways, my whole gripe with this is I also think that because of things like this and Facebook's move, you're going to see tech companies pivot towards having smaller applications in individual areas. So if this Journalism Preservation Act passes, Facebook is going to have a specific version of Facebook that's deployed in California that says, okay, well, we're not going to showcase the news here. Here you go. Here's the Facebook with everything but us leveraging the news. And everywhere else in the US is going to have it. And with VPNs now, why? Yeah. I'm just going to go and say, hey, I'm in Texas if I want to. Right. So that's the thing is, they're going to create this realistically. They're going to battle it out in court. Facebook's going to threaten to make these changes. California's going to decide if they want to put up this fight. And then Facebook's probably going to have to make a move. But if more and more places do this, it becomes more and more incentivized for the tech company to make a change. They're not going to necessarily make that change just to bow out of the California market. But like if every single state decides that they have a different regulation for journalists, then you're going to get 50 different types of Facebooks that are created and managed, which is not good for the application itself. It's not good for news. And I just don't think it's good for, it's just a way of carving out Facebook, because eventually people are going to get sick of it and they're going to get their news elsewhere.
Yeah. Do you think it's a denial threat then?
I don't think so. Typically when I look at politics in the US, a state will come through something, they'll let the lawsuit shake loose. And then as soon as the lawsuits shake loose, other states have a framework for implementation.
Yeah.
Right. So California has the money to fight the tech companies. They also have the lawyers that know how to fight the tech companies. So they're going to do it first. And then let's say you're New York or you're Massachusetts or something like that. Well, if you get a framework given to you how to implement this without getting sued by the tech companies, you're going to do it next. So that's why Facebook always puts up a big battle at the beginning to say, you do this. I know that there's 10 other, 15 other states that are going to implement this later. So I have to fight you. And then I also have to have a backup plan if this happens, right?
Right. Well, I mean, the articles, what do you think? Because Facebook's argument here isn't necessarily about paying for the source of journalism. It's about they're arguing that most of the journalists actually aren't Californian journalists. They're saying they're out of state. So, I mean, is that valid? Or do you think
and that's why I think this is just a levy tax, basically. This is just people. The tech companies have the most money to go around right now. Everybody wants their share. I think with Canada and its content that it's protecting, that's partially what it is. They're just looking around and saying, we don't want America exporting all of its content everywhere else in the world, and we want to control something, and we want to get paid to do it. Right? It's I don't like the word, but it's almost governmental extortion in a sense.
Ooh, yeah.
Because the internet's new. People don't know how to regulate it. They don't know how to control it, and you can't, unfortunately.
No, you cannot.
But you can control it for the average person who doesn't want to go and set up a VPN, who is okay with getting their news from Facebook. And that's what they care about. Because if you can control 30%, that's pretty big.
Yep. Those are the, good point. I didn't think we talked about this one as much.
Sorry. I kind of just rambled a little bit. But anyways, that's my WTF take on why this article pissed me off.
It's from. It's no surprise that our new hot take section idea came from Foster. All right, moving on. Chinese state hackers infect critical infrastructure throughout the U.S. and Guam. Okay.
Yeah, Guam.
All right.
So to break it down, basically China, one China, Taiwan, they want to take it over, all that stuff. And they're trying to figure out how they can disrupt communications for American and allies in the region. So one of the ways is to infect and get rid of, the allies in the region, because America will piggyback off the allies if Americans' eyes are blinded, let's say. So they go after Guam. They broke in. They didn't go and infect things. You don't run apt-gets. You don't run those things. They just use the software that's available to them in the things that they run. And that's how they're able to stay under cover, right? That's why I just brought this up, because when we talk about containers, we see these big bloated containers with all this software in it. And so just slim it down, right? Like the Docker Slim thing, where it's like, hey, you don't use these packages, get rid of it. To me, that's a security feature, but a lot of people don't talk about that as a security feature, right?
I think it's a footprint feature.
Yeah, and even if I have, anomalous baseline, and like I can measure for anomalous network activity, if I'm using lay of the land techniques and figuring out all of your servers and just running the commands that you're expecting in the containers, you're not going to catch it. And so they were able to basically stay alive and navigate the internal systems for a couple months. They basically had access, waited 3 weeks, and then started to proliferate inside. Which
and they're using fileless malware to do this as well, because that's what living off the land, or living off the land's a bad phrase. They don't mean you're living off the land. They mean you're never touching the land, meaning a file is never being written. For those of you who don't know what that means watching the show, it means fileless malware. So you can't get picked up by traditional detection generally. Great application for eBPF, by the way, to detect fileless malware. Anyway, for another show. That's cool. By the way, I'll just be geeky. I love the fact that the group's called Volt Typhoon. Come on, man. I'd be pretty happy with that if that was what the world named my hacking group, Volt Typhoon. Way better than Zero Cool.
Very true.
Yeah, nice.
Volt.
That's good. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Very, very crafty. Wait, where are we? Do we have another one?
Yeah, we have two more. So the Great CISO Resignation is coming up.
Oh my God.
Did you read this article?
I did.
All right. What are your thoughts?
Why security stress? We had an article like this on a previous, I don't know when it was about a year ago. Again, but it was a survey of CISOs talking about just the pressures and just the sheer stress. Whereas it's CISO dissatisfaction. It's it sucks to be a CISO is what it comes down to, I think.
Yeah. 100% say they're inequipped, that they need more resources. Most lack work-life balance because they're busy putting out fires.
Mm-hmm. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. There's just not enough. There isn't enough time to be forward thinking, I think, for the average CISO. You walk into, in most cases, what you would consider to be a mess. You start looking to clean it up, but it's like, what is the ratio of time to actually innovate and be proactive versus reactive?
Mhm.
And you generally spend all your time being reactive for every little inch of proactive work you can do to try and make sure that you're getting ahead of things. And it doesn't seem like, and this maybe even goes back to your hot take when you're talking about Kubernetes. They just come in and going, I have a problem. Does it solve my problem?
Yep.
And CISOs are doing the same thing. You have a security thing, does it solve my problem? I'm being reactive. I don't have time. They maybe not even realize they don't have time to be proactive. And it's just I think I told you once, when I first got into security, I thought it'd be great to become a CISO. And now I'm like, no way.
Never.
Am I going anywhere near that? I'd love to have that overarching control over a security strategy and a program. I think it'd be a ton of fun, but just like, nope, I'm wrong. I'm wrong.
Yeah. We had a hot take about how security, well, this will probably be coming up, talking about how security features are used for business capture. I think that would be a cool job where you're sitting as like next to the CISO saying, how can we use the security controls to help our business a little bit? It would be an interesting take. It's very Scrooge McDucky of me, but yeah, it would.
But that's true. That's the when they say they're under-resourced, that's the resource they need. Like they have to firefight. They have to make sure the business risk is being handled, right? But there should be always somebody under their wing focusing directly on innovation and ideas, like what you're saying.
Yeah, and realistically, a lot of it is just, especially in the Fortune 500 companies, big companies, it's reactive towards compliance and management and things like that, and you don't have the resources to create anything new, right? If you're in development or a developer, you can go and say, hey, we like these container things, let's go try them out. And then, if a CEO is pitched on the advantage of them, they'll say, okay, this one team, go and try it out and see if we can move our applications over. You have 3 months, right? You will never see that in security.
Yeah.
You'll never see them say, hey, okay, well, we want to use a new security tool. We've done the evaluations. They're pretty close. Do you think that you can implement this across all of our clusters? It's like, well, yeah, but we have one that works. Why would we make a change? If we make a change, then there might be a gap when we make the change. And if we make a gap, then all of a sudden we can have an exploit. So it's just very, very, security tools are the stickiest tools. And if you go into a new team as a CISO and they made a bad choice in the tool 5 years ago, sucks to say, but unless you're filtering those notifications, you're going to get notifications on a Friday night that something happened, but it really didn't happen. Yeah.
It shows a requirement for the maturity of businesses in the modern day generally, because if the people who are not funding the CISO office, and there's the trailing edge of this one says unfiltered communication with CISOs is critical, implying that it's not happening. So if the CISO is not getting unfiltered, feedback, bringing that feedback into the board isn't funding them, then the board just doesn't quite understand that.
Yeah,
this is not a cost center. This is an important enabler.
It would be, no security tool will ever implement this, but this would be my dream list, is to say, how many false positives are there notifications? What's the average time to resolution on those false positives? And were the developers notified of it? If you could quantify that and shrink that number, you could actually make a good case for a security tool. Because if I was in as a CISO, I would look at a tool and say, like, how many times is this screwing with our developers and it's wrong? How many times is like the average time to make a change, 2 to 3 days, and then we find out that it was useless. Like, we're paying security practitioners, $100, $200, $300,000 to sit there, and their job is to go through false positives, but it's not the job of the application to give them the false positives. Right?
Yeah,
that would be a number I could go to the CEO and say, hey, like, I've limited false positives. When a vulnerability comes in, I want you to take me seriously.
Cool. Right? Yeah. I mean, that I don't want to get into, we got to move on, but that is actually some of the USPs of some of the new startups in the security space is saying that they're trying to solve that problem. So that's cool.
Oh, higher mix marketing. All right. We got one more, and then we have a cool big spender this week. You had this one, PGP signatures on PyPy, worse than useless.
Worse. Well, it's great because I think multiple times over the past 6 months, say we've had articles in here saying that there's been package squatting or typo squatting on PyPy or malicious packages that are just put in there and the names look like things they want to be that you might need. And of course, it's no surprise to come in and see somebody did some research on the article about the PGP signatures on PyPy and largely saying they cannot be correlated with anything. They're using radically outdated cryptography. I skipped all the way to the end. There's a lot of good takeaways at the end where he does say, okay, a small handful of the research that this person did are so old that they can't be correlated. They're using no active binding signature. It's weak RSA keys. It's just saying no one's taking care of this. And he attributes it a little bit to some of the packages are so old that the automation around them that is just outdated radically. It's never been updated, even though the software itself or the package or dependency might be updated. The methods upon which things are being pushed into this store is largely useless. So it's not. It suddenly that makes me think. Well, no wonder it's being targeted by malicious hackers who are trying to execute supply chain attacks. Like if this is the kind of
this article's out there, yeah, you're pretty late to the party.
Yeah, it's just quite fascinating to see this as the results. Did you go through it any more than that? Like I just think it's really quite humorous.
No, I just saw that it's a very detailed article, and I was like, it's a little early for me on a Friday morning to go through that one. And it was your article, so I figured I'd toss it up to you.
No, it's interesting. It's like, okay, yeah, PyPy's a supply chain attack waiting to happen based on this. I also, it's the first time I've found this blog, which I thought was pretty funny. I love that there's a tag here called rant that clicks through. I have not clicked this yet, but after the show's over, I'm definitely going to click rant. To see
programming, philosophy, and peddling. I like that.
Yeah, I want to see what else he's got going on in his rant, because this is quite a good rant, particularly that the first line says that he's publishing this now. It's been significantly pared down to remove extended digressions. So what did it originally look like? It's pretty funny, and it's really long.
Yeah.
All right, it's pretty funny. All the links are below. I recommend you go read this one.
All right, big spender it is. Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, you found this one May 16th. It's an older one, but you were like, hey, I recognize this one from before.
Yeah, because episode 117 of yours truly, Clusterfuck, we covered Polar Security in Big Spender having got their seed of 8.5 million.
Yeah.
And this is one of the fastest. This is, I think, the first time we've mentioned Polar Security got 8.5 million in seed. Hooray. And then in season 3, they've been bought for 60 million. What? That's by you, actually, technically, IBM.
Yeah, technically. It came through on the Slack channel, and people are like, interesting. Wonder what they do. Also think the messaging is really weird. Polar Security, automate cloud data management.
Well, I popped it up here.
Yeah, unified data security for cloud workloads and SaaS.
Automated data discovery, protection, and governance on your cloud workload and SaaS. Yeah, so automating data discovery actually is actually hot in another world, not our world, but it is definitely solving a problem, and it's definitely kind of a thing that I could see IBM buying. Like it seems like a pretty good fit because they do have
their own cloud too, right?
Yeah, there's IBM Cloud as well, so it kind of is a pretty good fit. And buying them early enough in this modern era of ridiculous purchases, 60 million for IBM, pocket change.
Yeah, and I think in general, the whole hybrid cloud, movement in between clouds, it makes sense because not a lot of like Wiz will never be able to go and look into your private clusters and tell you about all those objects that are running there. It's more focused on cloud and API security right now, unless it's in the roadmap. Don't Don't come and yell at me in a couple months. But, you know, IBM having a tool that is focused on their cloud, and then, you know, with a little bit of shift into the public clouds, gives some people some hope. Let's say that it kind of fills that niche. It's very unique, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Still quick
Well
turnaround.
Well done.
So good for
well
them.
done. Yeah. Crazy. Well done. Whoever runs Polish security. I'm guessing they're Israeli.
Yeah. Good thing my tool time is short, but it's cookie time. We got 2 for you.
Now, what starts with the letter C?
Kaspersky. You want to do this one?
Sure. Yes. Kaspersky is a Russian hacking group.
Well, they also
group.
make antivirus products as well.
Yeah. So, but they're from Moscow, but they're not like Russians. Like, they're not a government agency, or so they say. I have no clue about the politics associated with that. Anyways, they realized that they were actually getting there's some unique traffic on their devices, and they looked into it and said that there is a zero-click vulnerability associated with Apple iPhones, where the user got sent a message and they didn't even have to click the message. Apple reported on this and said, you know, we have never put a backdoor in our phones. This is not a zero-click day that we know about, but only iPhones running iOS version 15.7 and below are able to be exploited. The current version is 16.5. So you're talking a year ago software in terms of releases. So not relevant to the average person, but I always find that the message sending that you don't have to click scares the crap out of me. Somebody can just send me a message and they have access to my phone.
There was one. Do you remember when I went into a lot of probably irritating detail, I think in season 2, about one that was the way it executed was you sent someone an image in an iMessage. You said it was an image, like a dot.
Yeah, and they click on it.
But you don't click on it. You actually it was a PDF, but you changed the extension to be ping.
That's right. And because the photos had excess permissions on the iPhone, right?
Yeah.
You were able to.
Photos were out of the sandbox.
Yeah.
And so the phone was smart enough to realize it was a PDF, processed it as such out of the sandbox. Thus, you had a zero-click vulnerability. And that was such a clever vulnerability. So it's like, it could be, it doesn't say how, but it could be something along those lines.
Very neat. I do have one that's more relevant for the average person coming up next.
Oh.
Yeah, Chrome has a 0-day flaw with an exploit in the wild. This came out on June 1st, high severity issue. As of June 6th, I believe Chrome has issued one patch on June 6th, and I think another one is coming another one's coming on Monday. So just an FYI. I think they will not say the details until the fix is out, but just make sure that you update your Chrome browser. It is a similar exploit to the vulnerability that came earlier this year. It's a type confusion bug in the JavaScript engine. But this one's more relevant. So hit the update button.
Hit the update button. Yes, at least this time when you're doing this to me, I had the update warning in the corner of my Chrome while you had this in here. I was like, oops.
Got him.
All right. Good. Nice one. What time is it?
Hey, it's tool time.
Does everybody know what time it is? Tool time!
Yes. Whoa.
Take it away.
I know. We got to do this little dual screen thing here. So you sent me this one. It's a CVE Prioritizer as I try to share my screen. This one is by Mario Rojas. He's a German security practitioner, I believe German. 14 plus years that he's been working on it. And we've, loosely talked in this show about software composition analysis. How do we know what is risky and what isn't? How do we prioritize it? And so this is the solution to it, I guess, or one of them. I think there's a good shot. Let me get rid of all these overlays. That this is a somewhat useful open source solution. Hopefully, I'm kind of curious to pick your brain, see what you think about this.
Yeah. So this came up in a conversation internally about the general rubbishness of the ability of CVSS, EPSS. There it is. Yeah, like getting all this in combination and making sense of it all. So now, my unbiased my ability to get the unbiased was to get you to look at it, which is great.
Gotcha.
How'd it go?
Yeah. Some bugs, but it went pretty well overall. I'll show you because I have the command lines stuff already up. So CVSS, basically vulnerability scoring system. EPSS is a exploit scoring system. So what's the chances that it's going to be exploited? And then C says known exploit vulnerability, known exploit. I forget what the acronym is. Too many acronyms. Known exploited vulnerabilities. There it is has it been actively exploited? So if it's been actively exploited, obviously it's going to receive more critical, a higher priority. And so why do we combine them? Because, well, if we just look at CVSS scores, it looks almost like a normal distribution. Doesn't really tell us, so we just focus on towards the end. But, you know, you could have something that's a 5 in CVSS scores that has been actively exploited. Shouldn't we focus on that one, that people have a roadmap and know exactly how to exploit that vulnerability? Also, why not combine it with information to say, you know, this is a vulnerability that is very well spread across a lot of, let's say, cloud workloads. So the chances of an exploit happening are higher because your hackers are going to go after an exploit that is more prevalent. That's why everybody goes after WordPress, right? Or Chrome, for that example. A lot of people have Chrome, so we go after the browser. So we use those scoring methods to say, you know, if you have a random C# program that's just on your server that nobody else has and has a vulnerability and it's off the internet, probably not that high of a priority, right? That's how we bring it all together for the average person. So we can see what we're trying to prioritize: high exploitability and low severity. We're going to deprioritize. Now, what this looks like is a table. So priority 1+, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
Now, I think one of the things, so upper right quadrant is 1. CVEs found in the known exploit are automatically 1+. Is the general feeling I got. If it's a known exploit, you should fix it, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's the table. All right. Now, usage, it's a Python program. So you have to have Python 3 along with a couple packages installed, but you just download, just clone the repo, and then you're running, sorry for all the scrolling, you're running the CVE Prioritizer.py command. So, you know, Python 3.11, run the Python command, and then pass the flags to it. They have a couple examples here. So there's V for verbose. Single CVE is C, list of CVEs is L, and a file with CVEs is F. I have an issue with the F flag that you'll see. You can define custom thresholds to align with results and define a number of concurrent threads to help. And recommended number is 100 to avoid API rate limitations. That's probably what I missed as to why it broke for me. So I'll try that out before I file any bugs. Now, what this looks like, if I can go over to that, you can see this. Why is it not moving over? I thought I did the window. I guess not. All right, let me remove this / have my computer slow down. I tried to share window, but I guess I did not. Let's do this. Oh, that's what I need to do, not window, entire screen. No.
Oh my.
Yeah, I need to clean up. Spring cleaning is on its way. Fall cleaning, spring.
Yeah.
All right. So you can see if I have Python 3.1, I'm clicking the py command, and then I can put a list in here. So I can put a CVE that I want. Any specific CVE that you want to see? Let's try.
How about the one we just? You think? How new is it?
Yeah, so there's a Google fixed Chrome from earlier this year that's known to be exploited. That's the one we just talked about. So I'll pull this one from the list. 1+.
Party 1+.
Known exploit. High CVSS score. And I think there's the patch for it. Emergency patch. And we had another one. Let me try this one again. So it's funny. So both C, if it's just a single C and list, you can input 1 or 2. No problem. If I do 2, yeah, so unexpected arguments, which to me is kind of weird. Like, why not just have 1 and then either have a single input or double input from like just command line?
Can you do -C twice? Oh,
one.
oh, weird. It only just picked up the first one. This is so common.
Pick up the
Python.
second one, not the first one.
Oh, weird. Oh, it overrode
Yeah.
the first one.
Yeah. Which
All
is,
right.
yeah, okay, fine. So then what I did was I went into StackRox and pulled all of the vulnerabilities on my PemLab, my little cluster that I have there. And this is, I had like 2,500 because I have a bunch of applications running. This is what I distilled it down to. And I ran it. I'm really going to do the concurrent threads. I'm going to try that live, see if it works.
Okay, cool.
Because, oh, there we go. So we got our first one.
That's slow.
Yeah. And it's not in a specific order, right? It's just going through.
It's not even the order you gave it.
Yeah, it's not in the order I gave it either. And this is the thing. So it's not in the order I gave it, and then it's not spitting out in priority list either.
Oh, weird.
I'm just wondering what the, like, how, what it's doing in the background.
It looks almost like it's in CVSS order so far. Because the first one was a 10.
Yeah, but then you have the
No,
1 plus in there.
No, it
like,
didn't.
right?
No, I mean, like, well, unless, are they all 9/8s?
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't check it. I did not check my work.
It was interesting that the 10 was first. I was wondering if it was in CVSS order.
Yeah, it's true. But then you think that
there's
there's a
5.3 at the bottom. There's
yeah,
a
you
5.3
think
at the
there,
bottom.
so probably CVSS order, which doesn't really make sense if you have this
No,
whole priority
it doesn't.
list. Like you should be trusting your call on the priority personally.
I would have thought it would come in priority list.
Yeah, because all this is telling me is you care more about CVSS score.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. To me, it's like priority, and then, although realistically, so when you don't do verbose, it does come out. Oh, did not want to do that. One too many. It just comes out with the priority,
Oh,
which
okay.
is kind of weird because if I, let's say I cut down on a bunch of these. Sorry, this is dumb, but I'm doing it.
Well, yeah, put a few in.
Yeah, and then I don't
Cool.
do verbose. Does it just list by priority? 1, 2.
Yes, we don't know.
No, and see, it's not.
Oh,
even,
no, it's doing it in the order you gave it. It is. The last one will be.
Yeah. Okay, so then this one is in
Oh,
order.
not quite. No, it's not.
No?
It's not. No, there's 8271 is the last one you get. So it is just random.
Or
Maybe-
probably
maybe-
is CVSS score.
Oh, maybe it is. Yeah.
Right. All right. Well,
it
we can find
I
out.
just can't tell.
But anyways, that was one of my issues with it. The other one was I had a file that I was pointing it to,
Mhm.
and it wouldn't take the file input. It was just saying error. And I pulled it from an Excel sheet. I did comma space. I just did spacing. Wouldn't take it. Also, it only picks a format that is for like CVE 2014 and then four numbers. But there's newer CVEs that have multiple that have a string of 6 numbers, right?
That's
Those
true,
don't get taken at all either.
Oh,
It's
so
only
strange.
yeah, it's only looking for that specific format. I think I'm not exactly
Why?
sure why, but I think if I go up enough, you
Yeah,
should
there's definitely
see-
some 5-digit ones for sure.
So do I have this here? So I limited the list, but in general, this cat. Where did I have CVE list? Okay, so I got rid of a bunch in that file. Then I have to pull it up, but let me try to run this way. List. Error.
Oh, it just
Right.
blew up.
Yeah, so it sees those 4. And so that's like, it asks for a text file. If I go over here, a file with CVs. So Python, blah, 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 .text, but doesn't exactly give like what format the text file should be. Like, should it be just enter, like a, right?
Like a list or a comma
Like a list or
separated
a comma
or-
separated. It just says, here's a text file. So I'm like, okay. And I went into Visual
what am I
Studio
doing?
Code. I edited the file a bunch of times in different ways, and it still didn't quite pick it up. So yeah, that was one of my big issues with it. Let's see if the thread aspect works. If I do .t 100.
Is that 100 threads?
It's said to use concurrent threads by using T or threads. The default and recommend number is 100 to avoid API. I don't know what that means. Is 100 like a container thread? Is it using like all of one thread?
Oh, maybe. I just assumed. Well, regardless, I just assumed it would it would do multiple. It would just process them all in parallel.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
because I can't type. Oh, so wait, what?
dash. Yeah, dash. Yeah, because this was pretty slow. So if this goes blat and they all come out at once, that would be a good use of multi-threading in this scenario rather than going one, then one, then one, then one.
And I think that's one of the issues. And then see, it's only picking up 4, even though I gave it how many now?
Okay, that's a bug.
Yeah. So there's a couple of issues with the file aspect, not having inputs on the larger CVEs. Things like Red Hat security advisories don't get picked up at all. So it only uses CVEs, obviously, which, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's just that if you ever export a list of vulnerabilities and some of them have like a specific security advisory, it's going to break it because it's going to say like RHSA is not a format that we accept.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Pretty good.
Overall, yeah. So pluses. I like the CVE. I like the priority, the 1+ versus 2 versus 1. I do like the whole scoring system. It's not as intuitive as I would have liked as to why it's being sorted a certain way, what type of file I should have. The setup, and this is the last thing. I'm going to open up a bunch of issues right after this. Is typically like you have, requirements, setup, all this stuff. You kind of scroll down, it makes the case, and then it has, how to use it. Right. There's no how to get started. It just assumes that you know Python, that you know how to download GitHub, you know how to use it, which I think is a fair assumption if you're this deep in vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
That being said, there's no like, hey, you need this stuff there. Even the requirements file is buried. So, I downloaded it, I ran it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm missing a couple packages. Right.
Got it. Yeah.
Right. It was .end that I had to re-download. I had to update all my Python stuff, which, if you're a Python practitioner, isn't a big deal. But for me,
feels like it'd be really good if there was just a containerized version of it and you don't have to deal with any of that shit. That would be handy.
Yeah. Overall, though, it definitely is going to solve a problem that will be coming up. More and more vulnerabilities, more and more open source tools and packages. Being able to correlate that, give it an actual score, know how to prioritize it, know it's not a false positive. This is actively exploited. Like, I think that active exploit aspect is such a huge, huge plus. I think.
Yeah, I like it. I think it got my attention, and it looks early. Like, give it 6 months, all those old kinks are ironed out of it. It seems pretty cool.
Yeah. Overall, Mario Rojas, give a shout out because that's his own repository. I think he's one of the only people working on it.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay, cool.
Yeah, 14 years in cybersecurity, threat intelligence, OWASP int and dark web investigations, uncovering threats and protecting organizations, fueled by coffee and cookies. And you can donate if you like his project.
All right, go check him out. Maybe donate. Sounds good.
Yes.
And don't just create issues and complain on Twitch.
Yeah. Yes, and as always, all the links are in the description below. We will be back in 2 weeks, right, Steve?
You got it.
Back in 2 weeks. I'm Mike Foster. He's Chief Shiger. Have a good weekend.